Jay. Welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. SJ, Stongo, Gary 5, Jaho Jeff Gedus. Welcome to Mvskoke Radio here on the Brew in beautiful Okmulgee here this morning. So going to be spring hopefully if the weather gives us a break and temperatures rise. But in the meantime, we'll keep bringing you the best of native broadcasting here in our area at least. On today's program, we're going to be talking with several people here scheduled. We have the National Women's Helpline called StrongHeart to talk about how they've been doing in their first year of combating domestic violence by offering support. We also have in studio here this morning some folks from our Employment and Training Division over at the Mvskoke Creek Nation. They're going to be talking about a career fair and labor possibilities here in our area. And lastly, we had a Mvskoke media team that went to Oklahoma City to cover the teacher walkout. And we have a piece from Skylar Drennan, our intern, who got his baptism of fire among the thousands of people there in Oklahoma City. And we'll hear what he has produced for us this morning and give a little chat with him about what he saw and his reaction. But first of all, let me welcome to our program, Tessina McBee.
Justina McBee with Employment and Training.
And Courtney Josie, who is in the background there. Okay. And lending moral support, and I presume. And Kathy Taylor.
Yes.
Good morning. Welcome to the program. We appreciate you taking time to come down and be with us in our program this morning. The event we want to talk about is an upcoming career fair and kind of give us an idea of the employment situation in our area. So first of all, let's hear about the career fair, what you've got coming up, and how people can participate.
We're going to have the Okmulgee County Career Fair 2018. It's a collaboration career fair with the Okmulgee Chamber of Commerce, OSUIT, Green Country Technology, and our office. How this career fair came about was the massive layoff here in Okmulgee with the Coke plant, which did affect some of our citizens and a few other federally recognized tribes. The event will be April 24th out there at Green Country Technology Center from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. They don't have to pre-register. They just show up to the event. We'll have on-site resume assistance. 1 week prior to that, we will have workshops at the Okmulgee Training Center here in Okmulgee. We'll have employers from Tulsa County, Okmulgee County, some from all over.
Mvskoke and
Mvskoke.
Okay. Now, first of all, it's at the Career Training Center.
The workshops will be at the Okmulgee Training Center, but the actual career fair will be at Green Country Technology Center.
Okay, so don't confuse that with the dome and go to the wrong spot. No, sir. Well, now you mentioned a number of employers who will be there. Can you give us kind of an idea in case we've got some folks looking for specific jobs or something?
Some here are, we'll have Flying T there. We will have PACCAR there. Let's see. Do you have a Covington Aircraft, Central Tech? Then we still have some registering too.
So about how many employers will be there again?
We're hoping to have at least 40.
Okay. Now, are there specific job areas that seem to be more in demand? People looking for people in this area than others?
Well, for the career fair, our main excuse me, our main focus was manufacturing, assembly line. So those are the ones we mainly reached out to. We're actually working with the workforce office. They're contacting the employers that they have to get them there, and then we have some there. And of course, we got other career fields that'll be there. Like some of them are a few staffing agencies. The casino, River Spirit will be there. Trying to cover all fields.
Mm-hmm. Kathy, what do you
Yeah.
got to pitch in here?
We do have Mvskoke Creek Nation's health department.
Mhm.
They are going to be coming in and they're going to be setting up. We have a lot of resources out there in case somebody needs to.
In case they want to change their career field, if they want to get in school, we will have some schools out there. There'll also be resources out there in case some of the families get affected, like if they need TANF, school clothing, and then we have some outside agencies too that'll be there, Deep Work, DHS, that way in case they need those types of services.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let me make a minor technical adjustment here. Thank you, Mr. Brewer. Now, this area it is, let's call it rural, and a lot of agriculture dominates our economy locally with some enterprises down here. Has your office been able to kind of keep tabs on the kind of jobs people are looking for?
The inquiries we got is mainly health, construction, and yes, we do have some ranches that are always needing help with like their pig farms, agriculture. So I'd say health and construction would probably be the top two.
Kathy, has there been any particular field that you've seen or people have talked to you about?
I work with the tribal grant and incentives and the classroom training program. So we've had a lot of people come in. They've been inquiring about fields for the health system. So we have a lot of people that have applied for assistance to go back to school for CNA, CMA, and nursing.
Mm-hmm. Now, it seems like then the health professions are a lucrative field. Now, is it something that is like hard to get into? You mentioned training classes and things like that. Is there a lot of schooling that you have to have? Do you think like as much as a doctor, or maybe not quite?
It just depends on the individual, whether they're just a hands-on learner versus if they go to Green Country, they can start off in the short-term classes and take the LPN, and if they want to get their bachelor's, go on to OSUIT, and of course they have to take the gen eds there, or if they're just wanting to just do the technical training part of it, which is with Green Country or Career Tech Center.
What kind of time frame are we talking about? Like 2 years versus 4 years, or or does it really differ a lot?
Yes, it's different. We have some students that go to OSUIT, starting off in gen eds, and they'll move over to the core classes. So it takes them about two and a half years. Mm-hmm. It just depends on them.
It's not too bad compared to a doctor where you'd be there for about 8 years and go into Hawk for a couple of million.
Mm-hmm.
And now, while we're talking money there, are these really, one, stable positions, like you get a job and you can be there for a while, and two, is it really a decent salary you're going to receive once you get into it?
Mm-hmm. I know the schools, they have good placement services, and then we have career services in our office too. If when they get ready to graduate, if they'll come back to our office, we can help them update their resume if they're still not able to find any job leads or employment after they graduate. Yes, it's high in demand. So if they, still need assistance after they graduate, they can come back to our office.
Now, are your training classes geared toward preparing students for these professions, or is it like this is what you will train to do once you become a professional?
I know with the schools, they do work with them really well as far as getting them placed when they complete their programs. So if it's an employer here in Okmulgee or Tulsa, they'll refer them to them.
Now, is this a rich market for that? You mentioned high demand, and you see all these TV commercials about going to school and learning these professions. So is it, your chances of once getting a job, pretty good then?
Yes, especially just from looking at one of the sites, Indeed, what comes through when we get hits is just health, and like I said, manufacturing and welding.
Welding, you see a lot of those kinds of things, and I always think of Flashdance. So most of the welders I've seen don't look like that. Now, is the labor market right now pretty tight? In years past, it was kind of tough to find a job, including the one I've got. But is Oklahoma kind of locked up as far as being able to find a job?
Just from reviewing the reports that come out through Department of Labor and through the state, I know back in November, Okmulgee County was like the second highest. They had the second highest unemployment rate, and right now it's Okmulgee County is like 6.5. We do go and look at just our counties that we cover. And like I said, right now it's 6.5 for Okmulgee County, but then that's not even including the massive layoff here.
Now, when we hear a figure like 6.5, let's get some perspective here. Would that be considered a major problem? A lot of people out of work, or is it sort of the norm?
With it previously being the second highest, I would say it is a major problem. That's kind of why we collaborated with these other agencies to, and we can't, we're not going to be able to employ everybody, but we can at least provide those resources and bring employers in where they'll have access to them.
Well, putting somebody to work is a pretty worthwhile effort there. Kathy, does this kind of thing gear what you offer you and your team in terms of classes and other available opportunities?
Yeah, if you decide to change your career field and you decide to go back to school, we can help if you want to go back to technical school or vocational school. And, it's just coming in, talking to us, or at least talking to somebody like a counselor at Green Country or Tulsa Tech to see what they have available. And most of the people that are coming through, we just want to make sure that they have the resources to, get some of these jobs.
Yeah, it's not cheap going to school.
No.
The closest training school to me would be in Sapulpa. And so after 40 years of doing this, I decided I'm tired of making poverty wages, and I'm going to switch to something that's a little more stable, a little perhaps worth the money and the time and the effort. Say coding in the health profession. I'm not quite sure what that is, but I'm thinking it's like you take these cases and figure out what people are saying is wrong with them, and they fit under certain headings, and you kind of put a file together for them. Is that it?
Medical coding, yes.
Yeah. Now, say I wanted to do that, and say to heck with this. Would it be able to do that, say, if I was in my, let's call it around 40-ish?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You're never too old to go back to school and do something like that. So over at Central Tech, That's in Sapulpa.
Yeah.
If you decide to go over there, you just get enrolled over there, and once you do that, you can apply for our grants or our
Classroom training.
or classroom training, which will help assist with some of the tuition. And then, once you go from there and you graduate, then, if you want to move on to something else, we're still able to help you.
Mm-hmm. Well, when I say to figure 40-ish, I didn't mean that's really me. I'm add a couple of decades to that, and here I am. So would someone, I guess we would call us senior citizens, still be able to realistically make those changes and attend the school for those sorts of things?
Yes. We've had a lot of people come through. They've been in a certain position for so long that they want to change their careers. So, we help them.
Mm-hmm. What about for the student himself? Is it kind of a culture shock? Is it? I know it would be kind of difficult for me to go back to a world of studying and doing homework again. But I mean, is that the case for most older students, or do they pick it up pretty quick?
I would say some of them they do pick it up pretty quick. Yeah, some of them think they can't make it, but whenever they get their grades in, they see that they're passing those classes, and it's not as hard as they thought it was.
Oh, well, I'll have to keep that in mind. Since I'm already past retirement here, I might have to do something about that. Now, can you tell either one of you tell me about how the Mvskoke Creek Nation labor scene is doing? Are there a lot of our Creek people that are unemployed and looking, or just unemployed, or are not having any luck finding jobs? Kind of give us an idea there.
Well, just from working in our office and interacting even after hours, and thinking about our smaller areas, especially like Wetumpka, Willika, I would say there is a lot of Mvskoke Creek citizens that are unemployed that need employment. So that's why we're going out and trying to hold career fairs, working with especially our Chamber of Commerce in each county, because I feel like those relationships with those are important because they have access to employers and can bring them in to our citizens. So yes, I would say there is a lot.
I guess next question deals more specifically with numbers. Is there a percentage of Mvskoke people that are unemployed that you are aware of?
Right now, that's what something that we're working on. I have contacted the State Department on seeing if those type of statistics are kept, and it's not kept by race.
Yeah,
So.
at least in Oklahoma.
Yes.
Would there be a national Indian group that has this sort of thing, or that you work with or maybe be aware of?
Not that I'm aware of now, but we are researching that.
Yeah, NCAI might be a good place to kind of look
Okay,
around.
thank
Now, if I were to walk into your office and say, well, I want to find out how to get another job, but I'm not quite sure. I kind of think that I'm good with my hands and can think through a thing. What would happen then? I presume there would be some kind of assessment or something like that, and then kind of walk me through your process there.
When you come into the office, of course, you'll put an application in. Once you put your application in, you'll put it in for career readiness. You'll sit down and we'll do, of course, give you the assessment. We'll look at your top interests and do more of a face-to-face intake with you. That's where we look at the employability plan that was filled out on the application, looking at to see if there was any previous experience, was it all hands-on, and just more interaction, during the initial face-to-face interview. If you are hands-on, we do look at some of those trainings or job leads where you can still use those skills that can transfer over to a new job.
So I had been, let's say, a welder, as we were chatting about, and there were things that I just decided I didn't want to do there anymore. I didn't want to mess with the flame and possibility of having a 2-ton chunk of steel fall on you or something like that. Would you make recommendations for job fields? Does it go that far, or kind of field the students and work with them?
Well, we've had individuals actually, come from welding. I actually remember meeting with a client, and he wanted to change over to culinary arts. Didn't want to do welding anymore. So it's all about just figuring out what you want to do in your career field. Talking with him about the programs that are out there and the services we can offer. If they want to do something like that, then we'll recommend another training institute, or if there are job leads out there for culinary arts, or if they're going back from culinary to welding, then we'll give them job leads.
It seems like we've seen a lot of ads for culinary arts, or schools, technical training have been looking at a lot of kitchens and things like that. Is that true? I mean, are there a lot of jobs like that out there? Or?
Yes.
Okay. Well, Kathy, what's been your experience there when you work with a student there and they don't know quite what they want? Do you recommend ideas, or say, well, start with this training course here, or this lab session? How would you handle that?
Most of the people that do come in, they already know what they want to do. They already know what career field that they want to go into. So, with the classroom training, we do the career assessment as well. We look at the highest career cluster that they have, and usually what they scored on the career cluster is not what they want to go into the field with, but we still work with them, and we just make sure that they follow through with their plan. And there's a lot of people that graduate and they go on to find the jobs that they want with the career field that they chose. So most, like I said, most of them already know what they want to do. So
yeah. I want to work outside, and I don't want to be cooped up in an office. Okay. Well, does your job fair make those kinds of things? And we'll go back over that and give our listeners one more idea of where the fair is and when and what.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Again, the Okmulgee County Career Fair will be April 24th at the Green Country Technology Center. It's off of Loop 56. Our office number is 918-732-7773. If you're needing more detailed information, the time will be 1 to 6. Just when you come in, be prepared for an interview, as some of them are going to do on-site interviews, Dress for Success, and then we'll be there to help them set their resumes up.
Okay. Dress for success is important there.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
You don't want to be ragged jeans and a tank top. Huh?
Yes, sir.
And if there's other employers out there that would like to attend our career fair as a vendor, we're still taking registration, and they can contact me, Kathy Taylor, at 918-732-7778.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you so much to Sina McBee and Kathy Taylor for coming down and sharing this information. We wish you luck, and find a lot of people who are going to take advantage of your services. So have a good one. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, now I believe we have our second segment ready to go here. Let's see, we need to punch some buttons here and see about putting things together. Okay, we're speaking with Caroline Laporte of StrongHeart. Is that correct? Are you there, Ms. Laporte?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Now, you are with the StrongHeart. Is it known as StrongHeart, the national helpline there?
Yes, it's the StrongHeart Native Helpline.
Okay. Now, we spoke with your folks about a year ago, at least, when you were just getting started, and we're interested in kind of things that you're going to be doing and people you're going to be reach. We want to kind of find out where you are now. It's been a year, and I guess you all are celebrating that. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, well, tell me, what's the past year been like? Has it been a busy one? One that you feel like was worth all the time and effort and money? Tell us about that.
I do feel like it's definitely been worth the time. It's been a lot of hard work just because it's starting something brand new and really from the bottom floor up, right? But it's so needed in our communities. We know, well, I'm sure you know that just the experience of intimate partner violence for Native women and men is very severe and it's very high. So the work has definitely been worth it. We have been able to assist over 600 callers in our first year, and we've responded to calls from 68 American Indian and Alaska Native communities across 40 states. So it's been a success.
Wow. It's, well, both good to hear and kind of sad to hear that, one, it's good that so many people are using this resource, but on the other hand, it's kind of sad that this problem is still prevailing and still with us. Now, in most of the national discussions of this particular topic, we hear that Native women are topping the list of victims of violence and worse, and are in situations that are extremely unhealthy. Now, has this national attention been helpful, do you think? Does it make people kind of say, well, help's out there, let's use this thing?
I do think so, and I think part of it, I'm a survivor of sexual assault myself. And when I think about sort of how this last year has unfolded, I mean, not even just for the helpline, but with the Me Too movement, sort of everything that's been going on in the domestic violence, sexual assault world, I think people have become more willing to open up and to share their stories. And we know, obviously, being Native, that there's healing in those stories. And I think that the resource that we provide, being that it's Native to Native or peer-to-peer, really helps with that trust issue. And I do think it's good for people to come and have a safe, confidential space where they can share those stories. And not only share those stories, but know that if they choose to, they can get resources available to help them additionally.
This subject for such a long time was kind of a taboo. You didn't speak of it in public. You didn't want to implicate friends or neighbors or family members. Have those kinds of attitudes changed? I know our societies, Native societies and communities, tend to be pretty closed, and people, kind of hide it behind closed doors. Now, do you detect any change in those kinds of attitudes?
I hope so. I think that in my work, I see that it's shifted. I certainly for myself feel more comfortable telling my own story. So I can say personally there's been a change for me. But I will say too that really anywhere we go, if we're giving a training or if we're at NCAI, we have people come up and disclose in person. So I do think that people are a little bit more comfortable. I still think the taboo is there, like you were saying. I still think it's hard for us to address these issues, especially because they're so tied to our experiences of historical trauma. And we really haven't gotten help that we need around that, right? So I do think that the tendency to not want to share, if for no other reason than not trusting that you'll get help, is still in place. And hopefully with the helpline or resources like the helpline, we can kind of continue to overcome that trust challenge.
The Native American community, and I'm using a singular here, it tends to be kind of closed about these sorts of subjects, and one of the reasons being they don't want to get a relative or husband or wife or aunt or uncle or grandpa or grandma in trouble. They don't want them to be shamed out there by the rest of the community, which would tend to be the case. Now, this to me represents a major obstacle in success, I think. Have you, first of all, have you run across this kind of situation still existing? And two, have you been able to find ways to overcome it?
So I have seen that. I've seen that as an attorney, so not specifically with my work to the helpline, but as an attorney, I can tell you that people just don't want to disclose, like you said, for a few different reasons. One, they don't want to get their partner in trouble, right? And that can be because of a variety of things. You know, they likely love their partner very much. They may have children with their partner. You know, they don't want to have to interact with another system like the child welfare system. So I still see that challenge very much persisting. I will say with the helpline, you know, one of the things that our advocates are really good about doing is focusing on what's called victim-centered advocacy. So, you know, certainly there's one part of experiencing domestic violence or intimate partner violence that can result in criminal or civil penalties for a partner. But another side of it might not be, right? And that's up to the victim. So if they don't want to go through with that, you know, our resources and our referrals aren't going to gear them towards that outcome. You know, they may simply want help getting into transitional housing, or maybe they need assistance with getting transportation away. You know, they may not want a protection order. They may not want to go to court. And that's okay. And that's certainly something that the helpline helps people navigate and figure out. So, yeah, I definitely still think those challenges are still there. But I also think, hopefully, with the helpline and other resources, that what the message can be to victims is that they have a choice in how they move forward.
Has your effort and the other efforts of Native communities across our nations made a difference, do you think? Now, first of all, with the victims coming forward, and two, perhaps with perpetrators kind of giving their activity a second thought and saying maybe this isn't what we should be doing. I know those would be difficult to answer, but would that be the case? Have you detected that kind of thing?
You know, I do think so. And the reason that I could say very generally that, you know, one of the things that we know about Native women who experience abuse is that they often feel invisible. They feel like there won't be a response to what they're experiencing. I think that what StrongHeart has done, what tribal coalitions certainly have done, what the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center and other resources like that have been good at is really making sure that the Native community understands that we see you, right? And we understand what you're going through. And kind of on the other side of that, the abusers see, okay, people are starting to pay attention to this issue, and maybe my victim isn't as invisible as I thought they were. Maybe they're not as exploitable as I thought they were. And I think that that's just something that has been the work of longstanding grassroots advocates who have really changed the tide about and have changed what the narrative looks like for Native women. And I think that that's really important because, like you said at the beginning of the call, the rates of abuse are really horrific in our communities.
Now, have people done anything with this information? Now, I know that we're, I think, seeing more programs and more people getting involved. Have our national, not national, but our tribal governments and things that you might be aware of really pitched in now? Are they realizing it's our own people that may be the causes of these problems?
Yeah, and I think it's a mixed bag. Like with sexual assault, for example, you know, we know from a recent study that 56% of Native women are sexually assaulted, which is just a horrific statistic. And then we know that 97% of that violence is committed by non-Native. And that goes back to all of the jurisdictional complexities in Indian country. And then with Native on Native abuse, it goes back to layered trauma, and how are we addressing layered trauma, and how are tribes addressing that trauma, and do they have the resources to do so? I will say that on the national side, there was a big win this past month. The federal government passed the fiscal year 2018 omnibus bill, and it included, for the first time ever, a set-aside for tribal governments to take advantage of what's called Victims of Crime Act funding. And it resulted in a 3% set-aside, which ended up being around $132 million. And that's for tribal governments to build up their response to violence in our communities. So I think that there is going to be a huge change this year. And I do think that part of that has been, at least with the helpline, we were able to say, look, we built this database of resources, and there just isn't much, and it's sad, and it's unfortunate because the federal government has a trust relationship with tribes that they should certainly be meeting. But I think that we have been able to show, and so have other people as well over the years, that there is a severe resource disparity in Indian country, and tribes aren't able to address the levels of violence in our communities because of the resource disparity. But hopefully with this additional funding, tribes will be able to take advantage of that.
The Violence Against Women Act, which is passed a couple of years ago, was hailed as a monumental change and a tool in combating these problems. Has it shown to be true? I mean, has it actually made that kind of difference, do you think, or the challenges that come along with it? Now, when I say the challenges, I presume it's going to cost some money to do that, and you got to have that. You have to have trained people dealing with tribal courts and law enforcement, and so on and so on and so on. But has VAWA made the effort all worthwhile? Has it made a change?
I do think so. So with VAWA 2013, tribes had their inherent jurisdiction to prosecute non-natives for domestic violence, dating violence, and criminal violations of protection order restored on tribal land. And that was a big deal. I mean, I look at it as not even just a big win for the violence against women field, but for advocates of tribal sovereignty. And it has worked. There are 18 implementing tribes currently. There have been no habeas challenges that have come from defendants. That's a huge win. And people are able to get justice where they were otherwise not able to receive it. And you're right, it is expensive. And hopefully there will be full funding for it this year and in the coming years. There are other challenges with implementation around additional gaps that have presented themselves as certain tribes have implemented. So, one thing, for example, we know is that, right, like in the context of family violence, the instance of co-occurring child abuse is very high, which is unfortunate for a number of reasons. But one of the main reasons it's incredibly unfortunate is that the tribes wouldn't have jurisdiction to prosecute in that situation if we're talking about a non-native abusive partner, right? So what ends up happening is that unless the abuse is really severe for the child, the federal government doesn't pick up the prosecution of it. I mean, where the state has jurisdiction, they may or they may not. But it really results in the child not getting any justice, and then furthermore, not getting access to services that they need. Another issue has been sexual assault. Tribes can't prosecute for sexual assault where a non-native perpetrates the act against a native outside of the context of an intimate partner relationship. So that's another gap that has arisen. And then, again, for our law enforcement, our officers of the court, our bailiffs, once a defendant is already in the court system under special domestic violence criminal jurisdiction, if they assault a police officer, like an arresting police officer, if they assault a bailiff, or even in the context of employment, the tribe can't prosecute for that either. So those are the things that on the national side we're trying to address, especially because VAWA is up for reauthorization this year. It needs to be done by September. So those are the kind of things we're looking to fix. But I do think it has worked. I think it's actually worked exceptionally well.
Yes, I know it's been hailed as one of the answers. One thing that kind of always sticks in my mind is some of these native communities are just so small. I'm thinking of some of the perhaps rancherias or reservations in California, which for the most part have got a judicial system, but they're still small. But in Alaska, where those villages are maybe 78 to 80 people, counting a few dogs, it just doesn't seem like it would be possible. So, is there anything there that's coming along that might be of assistance to those situations?
Yeah, there are some things. So, like with VAWA 2013, when Alaska was pretty much left out because it doesn't qualify as, technically, it doesn't fit the legal definition of Indian country for purposes of the act. So there was a fix to that. But you're right. I mean, the smaller tribe, it does cost a lot of money, and how they're going to implement will continue to be a challenge. But they do, in Alaska, for example, they do have their own tribal court systems, and it'll be interesting to see how that work moves forward and progresses. I think Alaska is its own very unique situation, but you're certainly right. Like the smaller tribes face a challenge, even if you just look at it simply from a funding perspective. The Violence Against Women Act, Special Domestic Violence Criminal Jurisdiction provisions were only funded at $2.5 million 1 year and then $2.5 million the next year. And that wasn't enough money to cover even the piloting tribe. Mm-hmm. So they're really going to have to start investing more funding in order for other tribes, especially smaller, like you said, to be able to implement these provisions.
Right. Perhaps some sort of regional consortium or coalition might be one of many possible answers, I think. Okay.
I agree.
Now, as we come back to the work that StrongHeart is doing, has there been a particular region in an Indian country that has responded more than others? Hotspots, so to speak.
We originally piloted in Oklahoma, Kansas, and Nebraska, and so I certainly think that area specifically has been. Just simply because it was more targeted by our marketing originally. We don't aggregate our data by state right now just because of confidentiality concerns. But I do think that now that we've opened it up nationally, we'll see some interesting trends sort of emerge from what we're doing.
Okay. Well, we've got a couple of minutes left. Now, if someone were interested in availing themselves of your services or just needed someone to speak with, someone who would listen to them, how would they go about that? What's the number?
Absolutely. So they would call 1-844-7-NATIVE, NATIVE, and just the number is spelled out 1-844-762-8483, and they can reach our advocates for no cost, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Central Time. Our advocates can offer peer-to-peer support, crisis intervention, personalized safety planning, and really importantly, access to culturally appropriate resources. If you call after hours, which is common, the callers have the option to connect with the National Domestic Violence Hotline, or they can call back the next business day.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, let's hope that folks in need will have the integrity, guts, let's just say the guts to do it. I mean, I know it would take a lot of strength to bring all of this load of personal baggage and kind of share it with someone. So let's hope people...
Yeah, and anybody who's experiencing domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, stalking, teen dating violence, they can certainly reach out to us, and we would be happy to help.
Okay. Well, Caroline Laporte with the StrongHeart National Helpline, we sure appreciate the work you're doing. We'll maybe keep our eye on you there and see how you're doing, and hopefully we will talk to you during a successful year number 2. So
thank you so much. We really appreciate your support. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, and we'll talk to you again. So I want to say,
okay.
Widow. Thank you. All right, we're going to take a short pause here, and we'll be back with Skylar Drennan and his report on the teacher walkout. Our team brought back from Oklahoma City, so please stay with us here on Mvskoke Radio.
I started doing it when I was 11. I wanted to be just like my big brother. And some of my friends were already doing it. We got hooked fast. I just can't get enough. I'm Jacob, and I'm addicted to playing the drums.
There's lots of stuff that makes it cool to be Native. Doing meth isn't one of them. Find something better to do. Check out ncai.org. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Hear that? That's the sound of hope being killed by meth. Methamphetamine use is causing huge problems in our community. Hear that? That's the sound of something you can do about it. Events like rodeo, res ball, and family time can help keep kids away from meth.
Talk to your kids. Keep our culture alive. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Learn more at ncai.org.
Welcome back to, gosh, I'm lost. Welcome back to Mvskoke Radio here on the Brew. We have in studio here our new intern. We're putting him to the test. Trial by fire. Skylar Drennan, thanks for coming in. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
We have a piece you had produced from the walkout, but first, kind of give us an idea of what we've got.
Yeah, absolutely. We took a small team to Oklahoma City to cover this. This was a very historic, and you know, it picked up a lot of national and even around the world. It picked up a lot of people wanting to report it, and I'm just glad they took me along as an intern. This is something I've been following very closely, and it was great. It was great to see. There was a lot of people there. We arrived about 8:30 in the morning. There was roughly about 1,000, 2,000 people there already, and it was cold on Monday too. So just seeing the people bear the cold out there, and you just seen after just over an hour there was tons and tons more people just coming in by the bus loads. You turn around, there was 5 or 6 more buses just in line ready to drop off more people from just all over the state, and it was great to see. There's children there, little babies, and all the way to elderly people just out there fighting for this cause and trying to get more education funding, just for teachers all over the state.
Outside of a football game, did you ever seen that much humanity all together?
No, absolutely not. It was good. Like I said, it was great to see these people come together just from all walks of just life around it. Even if they weren't even just teachers and students out there, just parents and just co-workers and everybody just there to support each other and really just fight for this cause.
Okay, now what have we got here on your feature here?
Yeah, I've got a lot of interviews from teachers and students and parents, all just discussing why they are there, and they're still there today, just for this teacher walkout, trying to get education funding. And a lot of them are telling us why they are there to fight for this, and just telling us a little bit about their stories.
Okay, well, let's give it a listen.
These were just some of the chants heard at the state capitol in Oklahoma City on Monday, April 2nd, as teachers, students, parents, and many others came to support an increase in education funding. Many said this was not strictly about a pay raise for their salaries, but for education funding as a whole. Teachers talked about why they are there fighting for more funding. Teachers from Blanchard, Tulsa, and Sand Springs, Oklahoma all spoke to Mvskoke Media about why they are there.
I'm up here to get funding for my students to give them the quality education that they need.
We are here to stand up for our children. Our children don't deserve to be last. Our students, our Oklahoma students, deserve to be first. They deserve the best. We don't deserve the bottom.
We need funding for our schools. They are the future, and if we don't do something now, we're in more trouble than we are now.
My children deserve so much more than they're getting. My support staff deserves more. We need more special education teachers in our schools, counselors, therapists. We just need so much more than what we're getting.
I am here today doing what I always tell my kids to do, which is be my best self and stand up for what I believe in. And I believe that our students deserve way more than what they're getting.
Because our kids are worth it. State funding isn't adequate. Teachers are having to make ends meet just to have supplies in the classroom, and the state should give the students, our future, the money they need to thrive.
As many teachers have stated, this is not just about their own pocketbooks, but about the students. Students seem to be the driving force behind why teachers are there to try to get an increase in education funding. Mvskoke Media spoke with Choctaw High School student William Erie about why he is there to try to convince lawmakers to increase education funding. Erie talks about outdated textbooks and other things he sees as a student.
It's the lack of funding and stuff like that for just textbooks and just the per pupil spending and stuff like that. Well, I know his textbook. We looked at it last night. I think is like 8 to 10 years old. One of those. So I know that during band, sometimes we go to like contests and stuff like that. So my band directors they have to pay for their subs. If we go somewhere to take care of the other kids, we have to pay for our school buses, just stuff like that. So we basically have to pay to get there. We have to pay to use school buses, which is kind of weird.
Behind the Capitol building, many gathered on a walkway over a busy highway to try to get drivers to show their support. Honks are being heard in this next interview with Chrissy Frost, a student teacher from the University of Central Oklahoma. Frost spoke about what she sees in the classroom on a daily basis.
I get to see everyday students who are sitting in desks that are broke, bathrooms with ceiling tiles falling down. It's pretty sad, the situation that the students are in. And the bill is nice, that's great, and we could come here and say thank you for that, but the students, they're left out of this, and if we're going to hold our students accountable for their work being complete, then we expect the exact same thing for legislators. It's no different. If that's the standard we're going to hold them to, why not? Why are legislators any different?
Frost even spoke about what she would like to see legislators do and consider when it comes to education funding.
I would like to see them consider funding education, the books, the resources. Those are things that that teachers spend out of pocket. And if we get this pay raise, regardless of how much it is, if we're still putting that back into the school, then we're in the same situation we were in before.
Other teachers, such as Jenny Honeycutt from Henrietta Public Schools and Becca Walton from McClure Elementary in Tulsa, Oklahoma, state their frustrations and why an increase in education funding could be desperately needed in their classrooms.
I've seen underfunding, worn out materials. We have to beg and borrow and plead from classroom to classroom to find materials to fill our room. We're having paras cut, we're having support cut, programs are being cut. We've already lost teachers or paras for next year. We've lost computer programs that kids use. We've lost those for next year already. Something's got to be done.
In my classroom specifically, the furniture definitely needs to be updated. I have several broken chairs. Most of the furniture is a mismatch. At the beginning of the school year, I had a lot more children in my classroom. I didn't have enough desks for them. Not by far. I had to have children sitting at the back of my teacher table by themselves from everyone else. I had to scrounge around the school to find chairs. I also, like what I said earlier, the services is what my students really need. I have a lot of students who have a lot of trauma in their life, and they're not getting those types of services that they need. Not saying that it's not in the schools, there's just not enough of it. We definitely need more therapists in our school, more social workers, more counselors, and like I said, more special ed teachers.
With the uncertainty of how long the teacher walkout will last, or how long it will take legislators to pass a new bill in order to increase education funding, teachers like Macy Pryor, Atticus Dellinger, and others have stated that they've had to pick up second jobs or the possibility of relocating.
Even with my husband and my own salary, I work a second job with VIP kids just so I can pay off my loans.
I do have my Arkansas teaching stuff at the house to fill out for my teaching license. That's not what I want to do by no means. Oklahoma is my home, and I want them to take us into consideration, take our kids into consideration, and do what's right for them.
I don't want to speak for everyone, but it's definitely in the back of probably most people's minds. If the state really just doesn't show that they stand behind their teachers, it's definitely plausible that we lose a lot.
Leslie Christopher was there with her third-grade daughter, Emmeline, as she stated her fears for her daughter's future. She fears that the teachers nor the resources will be there once her daughter reaches high school status.
Well, I just believe that education is worth it. I believe that we need to not only pay the professionals who teach our children as the professionals that they are at a level that a professional deserves, but I also believe that we need to provide them with the resources that are needed to adequately teach, not adequately, effectively teach our kids. My daughter is in 3rd grade this year. That means she's never had a funded classroom, a fully funded classroom. I have a kindergartner. She has never had a fully funded classroom either. I hope that when my kids are in high school, they have the opportunity to take higher math, higher science classes. Those are the types of things that I took when I was in high school that prepared me for college. I had advanced English classes that were incredible with doctoral level teachers, and I hope and pray that my students, my children, have the same quality of teachers that I have. Currently, there are that quality teacher in Norman, but I don't know if they still will be there in 7, 8, 9, 10 years when my kids are ready for that. We have incredible teachers in our district, and I want them to stay, and I want new ones to come, and that's why I'm here today.
Mvskoke Media had the honor to interview a young girl who would like to remain anonymous as she shared some of her story. She said it's more than just education funding increase. She said if it wasn't for teachers, she would not have a place to live, and she credits that to one of her high school teachers.
I moved in with my brother, and I kind of knew I was going to get kicked out of his house. So I was crying in the hallway one day, and my freshman geometry teacher was like, "What's wrong?" So I told her, and she was like, "Well, give me a call if you need anything." And I was at DHS office trying to find my little sister a place to stay, and then I called my geometry teacher. I was like, "Hey, can I spend the night?" She said I could stay there for 3 weeks until school ended, and I've been there for a year now.
Fully fund Oklahoma education now! Fully fund Oklahoma education now!
Well, we see that some of those things are rather vocal and loud, and others are easier to go. Now, this is pretty much your first assignment, and you survived it.
Yeah, survived the tens of thousands of people there for this, but it was a great piece to be a part of for my very first one. Like I said, it was something I was following very closely, and the teachers and parents and everything were very adamant about this isn't just about salaries, it's about just funding and helping out the classrooms and the students, and they all urged everybody to call their local state reps and just their state representatives and just let them know what's going on and stress
there's more to the problem than just salaries.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, let's get on with some community announcements here on the minute we have. First of all, if you want to get your graduate profile in Mvskoke Nation News, you better get with it. Deadline is May the 11th by 5 p.m. You need to get your digital photo and material into our boss Jessica, and late profiles will not be accepted at 732-7720.
There's a 2018 summer immersion camp with Mvskoke language. It's June 4 through 8 in Holbert, Oklahoma. Application deadline is April 9th at 5 p.m. Submit a 200-word essay explaining why the Mvskoke language is important, and that number is 918-732-7649.
Okay, you can get college work experience, an internship for college juniors, seniors, and graduate students to get professional experience. So you might be able to get a job and learn what you're supposed to be doing there. Applications accepted until April the 27th, 732-7773. That's about all we can do here today.
Right.
Thanks, Skylar. We appreciate it. Nice piece. We'll be looking to hear more from you in the future. So for Mvskoke Radio, this is Gary Fife saying Mado. You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. But